The UK has recently been making quite the impact on the world of MMA, so much so that the attention is slowly but surely turning into the direction of the land of rain. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be going over the massive amount of success British fighters have had in the recent months, or as we like to call it, the British Takeover. Before we get down to the actual takeover itself, if you like these kinds of videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel as we release new MMA related content regularly, and that way you won't miss another video. But that's for future videos. Today, we'll be going over the current fighters from the UK, what happened on the night of March 19th, what this means for the UFC. So, if that sounds like fun, let's get inside the cage, and 3, 2, 1, fight! The legendary March 19th, 2022. So, what exactly happened on this date? Well, the UFC held an event at the O2 Arena, and many consider this to be a historical moment for the Brits, being that out of 4 tea-drinking fighters, they had 4 incredible wins. These 4 fighters were Tom Aspinall, Paddy Pimblett, Arnold Allen, and Molly McCann. Each one of them won their fight by finish and proved that reign isn't all that Britain has up its sleeve. In fact, many believe that the reign of the UK over the UFC is only just beginning. The first of these matches was Molly McCann, and she fought Luana Carolina, who, despite sounding like the world's hottest chili pepper, is also quite the fighter. However, Molly decided the match in an instant with one of the craziest spinning elbows of all time, proving that the UK doesn't just have male representatives that deserve attention. The elbow itself was pretty spectacular, and we bet it'll look great on her highlight reel. Next up, we have the up-and-coming star that everyone has been talking about, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, who had his match against Kazula Vargas. Now, aside from the fact that Kazula sounds suspiciously like a cartoon villain, Paddy was still the crowd favorite even without that advantage. The Baddy himself ended his match quite early by submitting his opponent while still in the first round of their match. The Baddy himself ended his match quite early by submitting his opponent while still in the first round of their match. Paddy is currently taking the MMA world by storm, so keep an eye out for this happy-go-lucky young fighter as he's sure to continue surprising everyone time after time. After this, we had Arnold Allen, who just looks like the guy from the pub yesterday, don't he? Allen fought against Dan Hooker, and we won't go into what his name sounds like. Anyway, Allen won his match by TKO in the first round, clearing the 3rd clean win for the Brits already, making this a historical night. But then came time for the main event of the night, with Tom Aspinall versus Alexander Volkov. Apologies, but we couldn't really think of anything Volkov sounds like. Oh, on second thought, a vampire. Definitely a vampire. All jokes aside, this fight was the main event for a reason. While the fans were still 80% on the side of Aspinall, the bets were not that one-sided. Alexander Volkov being the former heavyweight champion in Bellator, and Aspinall being the rising star within the heavyweight weight class, was the perfect matchup. However, much to everyone's surprise, Aspinall ended the match with an arm lock in the first round, shocking the entire world in the process. This is surely the biggest win in his career so far, and we can't wait to see where he goes from here. Now, Aspinall is also a Brit, so he just can't help but be extremely polite. When asked about the fight, most of the time he was talking about how good of a fighter Volkov is. He said, "Volkov has more knockouts than I've had fights, and no one takes him out like that. No one." But even so, he seems extremely confident that he's getting to the top of the heavyweight division, and it does look like he really will. UK's MMA history. Now, the UK isn't really known so much for its influence on MMA, but that doesn't mean that they don't produce great fighters. They've been shining bright in boxing for a long time with Anthony Joshua, so we've known that they're fighters, but up until this point, not much emphasis was put on their MMA skills. This, of course, is vigorously starting to change. The only big UFC fighter from the UK up until this point was Michael Bisping, who was the first British fighter to become a UFC champion and was inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame in 2019. But now, Tom Aspinall and Paddy Pimblett seem to be taking the lead as both have been on a serious roll lately. Pimblett surely has the attitude of a huge star, similar to Conor McGregor, but Aspinall, while not being so hot on the trash-talking side, is definitely a force to be reckoned with inside the cage. Fighters! But you can't just have 4 fighters win in a night and claim that that's the British takeover. If it was only based on that, then it wouldn't be the most adequate statement. So let's back it up a little bit by name-dropping a couple of the best British UFC fighters outside of these four. We already mentioned Michael Bisping, who was definitely at the top, being in the Hall of Fame, and winning the middleweight championship back in his prime. But other than him, there are names like Dan Hardy, Ross Pearson, Brad Pickett, and Leon Edwards. And these are fighters who are already making quite the name for themselves. But that's not the whole extent of the Brits' invasion. The UK is sending an army of young, motivated individuals who want to follow in the footsteps of Michael Bisping and win the gold for their country. Let's go over a few of these young fighters. We already mentioned Tom Aspinall, but along with him, we have another fighter called Jack Shore. Shore is the newest bantamweight monster that transitioned from Cage Warriors to the UFC. He won his first two fights, making his official record 13-0, which looks more than promising for his career. Mason Jones is another one of these fighters that just screams potential. Even though he lost his first fight, it was labeled Fight of the Night, and having your first fight ever in the UFC do that is pretty unheard of. Leron Murphy is another of the UK fighters who looks promising. He was a soccer player, but had a knee injury when he was younger, which ended his career. A couple of years later, and he's come to take the UFC, as he stated, "My goal is to take the title. What else could I be here for?" So not only is the UK going strong already with some of its bigger fighters, new faces are getting in day after day and winning fight after fight, bringing glory to their country. Conflicts. Now we keep talking about Paddy, the Baddie, and Tom Aspinall and where they're headed, but there's another UK fighter who kind of stepped to the side after these two started shining. His name is Darren Till. Darren was on his way to being the most well-known UK fighter before Aspinall and Pimblett took the UFC world hostage. Lately, Till has been getting a bit more attention as he got into a conflict with middleweight champion Israel Adesanya. This all happened because of a comment Israel made on a video watching Tom Aspinall win and climb up on the cage, where Darren Till also climbed the cage along with Aspinall. Adesanya said that he should lay off, know his place, and let Tom have his moment, which Darren Till had a problem with. He responded by saying that they all just look down on him because he lost his last match and that he'll be back in no time, and accusing Israel Adesanya of using drugs, saying that's the reason his fights are getting sloppy. While this conflict still hasn't been resolved, it just goes to show that the UK fighters aren't backing down and are even pointing at the big fish, not being afraid of conflicts, even with the champions themselves. So, to recap, the UK has been on a crazy upward spiral regarding its UFC competitors and will probably continue until either Tom or Paddy get the gold and be able to call themselves champions. Oops. Seems like we're running out of time. Looks like you were saved by the bell once more. This was everything about the British takeover of the UFC. If you found this video entertaining, consider Superman punching that like button, as well as subscribing to the channel for the latest MMA content. With that said, we'll be taking our leave, so have a great day, and we'll see you next time.